Welcome everyone, good morning. And I tried to handle two devices at the same time, so let's see if I manage to actually click my presentation forward and not turn off the mic accidentally. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the warm and kind words of introduction. I, of course, will talk about things Google is doing for startups. But the thing is, and that's what I try to emphasize with the title, I believe there is no such thing as a startup per se. So any startup on earth will tell you the things that mattered when they started out is they had a good idea and the right people in the room. And sometimes even they started with the right people and the correct idea and the good idea came to them. So essentially, when we talk about startups, we talk about everyone here in the room, we talk about everyone having an idea, trying to make it happen, and that in a new world of business, in a new world of opportunity. So this is why Google is not so much connecting the startups per se, but always puts it down to the individual that we are working with, the entrepreneur, the person that has the idea and try to make it happen. So who am I? I'm developer relations lead at Google. So Google, we like to think of ourselves as the world's largest startup. You know, the small little search engine provider out of Mountain View, California. And we had kind of like the prototypical US story. Google started practically in a garage, probably a nice garage, but still. And with people who had a simple idea, making information available to everyone. I don't know about you, when I look over this ranks, a few of you might even share with me the upbringing to be connected to the internet through portals that try to serve you information, and they were usually not that good in giving you the stuff you were looking for. And Google was, when they started with the very first search engine, Larry and Sergey, they were close to a revolution by just giving you answers instead of helping you search. This is something that continues, and Google expanded operations and built services around that simple idea, making information available, and still up to date. This is the main thing Google tries to do, make the world a better place by giving information that's relevant to you and making it available to you in the moment when you need it, in the context that you need it, in the way that's important to you. So we're talking about entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are people, and everything we do is about connection, everything we do is about being at the right time, at the right place. And as I said, Google is passionate about a global scale community in that sense, and that's something that changed significantly. If I look back, I kind of feel old saying that, but I'm in the industry for about 20 years. And the past 10 years, the way businesses started out changed. People in the past were kind of lone wolves, having an idea, trying to find the money, pulling off a company, mostly a local business, growing that local business, nurturing it. A lot of incredible resources were needed to actually pull it off. In the past few years, a few things happened that changed the game significantly. Things like the technology revolution that made available cloud services to everyone, almost a commodity, having almost unlimited processing power at your fingertips, having data storage capabilities that in the past required you to basically start your own data center available for essentially free or very low cost. These things were all game changers technology-wise, but the more important change, again, was happening on the people side. People were able to connect with each other, were able to meet the right people, were able to move things, so found very easily the right experts to do things at a larger scale than just local, at a global scale. So Google is an operation by definition aiming at a global scale. And since we are thinking of ourselves as the world's largest startup, we are passionate about helping others do the same thing. So this is one of the very first reasons why we had startup initiatives, startup programs right from the beginning when everyone started talking about it and IT startups really came into existence. So for this group here, there are a few things that I can bring with me. When I envisioned that session, I was thinking about a few things. Of course, I could have taken the technology angle. I'm a developer relations lead, so talking about tech is my bread and butter business. And I could bore you to death with details that probably don't matter to you or don't matter to you, but maybe to the guy next to you. So I was thinking about a talk like that right in the beginning, where I could list all the technology options and the offerings that you have. But probably, since you're sitting here, you're kind of aware that Google has a set of operations that might be interesting to you. I will touch on a few of those and give you an idea about the scope, but we won't talk about the detailed tech, and I probably, I'm pretty sure that you appreciate me not geeking out on some cloud service here on stage. We talk about startups. Mentioned entrepreneurs, startups, not necessarily the same thing, but very much connected. What is the difference between startup and entrepreneur? The entrepreneur is the person making things happen. The startup is the business entity often forming around that. And when it comes to startups, there are very tangible things that you need. And we talk about some of these things and some of the services we have and some of the offers to help meeting those needs. And that's kind of the beef of the talk, the next 30 minutes. How do we help? What is it specifically that we do? And what are the options that you can connect? I mentioned a few things changed, and the one most important change is it's getting actually almost hard now to start something at a local level. Most people I talk to, and I'm at startup events, developer events, conferences, boot camps, pretty much all the time. Most people I talk to, they may start local, but actually almost all of them have like other countries or continents or the global community in mind. So who in this audience, who considers themselves a startup and an entrepreneur? All right, so most of you. Who hopes to be just running his operation in Germany? Yeah, I thought so. Who aims for the globe? About a third of you. Continent? No one. Oh, one. So no one wants to stay local in Germany. A third of you wants to stay, wants to extend the operations eventually to the globe. And I guess the reminder had a number of countries in mind, like, oh yeah, we want to go to France and Spain and whatnot. So helping with that is one of the key things Google can do for you. So connecting the dots for you, making things relevant in a global context, helping you find your users, helping you find market fit, helping you expand your technical operations so your solutions run on a global level. All these kind of things. And that's one of the first changes we see when we talk about a startup community or a startup movement, that people aim at the big picture. At Google, that's what we call a moonshot. So a moonshot in Google speak is basically every idea that's realistic. So you have something that's not based on dreaming, but you have something that's based on technology, science, fundamental ideas. But it's kind of in scale and ambition too large to grasp now. And a moonshot is the idea of making it happen, trying to take that ambitious idea and actually make it happen by breaking it down into manageable steps. And Google has done so in the past, and we try to help entrepreneurs who by design aim for a similar thing achieving that goal. And I'm talking, of course, about things like the self-driving car, which is kind of a thing that you probably heard about and at the IIA might be interested in. We talk about things like Project Loon, which is a project trying to bring high bandwidth internet to the world. And it's called Moonshot for a reason. Of course, because you aim for the stars doesn't mean that you always have a secure hit in the first attempt. So you have to stay with it, try it several times. Some of the some of the most knowledgeable writers and speakers on startup culture and entrepreneurial culture actually say that grit might be very well one of the top traits that you have to bring as an entrepreneur. But to make things easier there might be something that you appreciate. Another trend we are seeing, we are here in the new mobility world. So another thing that we are seeing is a trend to be mobile. Your devices are accessible to you anytime, and we stopped having just a mobile phone with us. Actually, what we have is a smartwatch, a mobile phone, some wearables, and devices are becoming ubiquitous. More and more interesting solutions come up, the more intelligent our surroundings become. And there is no trade fair, no announcement on Wired, no week passes by without some new form factor, some new technology that essentially gives you some service, some functionality to carry around or that travels with you. Mobility also means that your context is traveling with you. The very first cell phones basically were a way to connect to some technological world. Now the technological world tries to travel with you. Your data, your context, your personal connections actually become more mobile as well, as we become more mobile. And as we travel the world, our data is with us. So this is a trend, along with the accessibility of technology, that's embraced by startups and entrepreneurs. So new technologies emerged through all these form factors, new ideas emerge, and I encourage you to think of more than just a smartphone and a car when you think about mobility. So what are we seeing as trends here? And that's kind of like a logical result of what I just said. We see mobile traffic, smartphone traffic, tablet traffic, smart devices traffic, wearables traffic exploding. We see connected devices around the world being more and more typical. So you have on all continents on the planet connected devices, intelligent devices show up and help you handling your day-to-day transaction, help you solving problems that you had to solve by taking a distance trip to some place in the past, that make things more accessible, easier to use, and more relevant to you. And the traffic resulting from that, what we see, the data traffic, is exploding as well. So there are a few things to say about that. All this data, all this traffic needs to be processed somewhere. And as mentioned in the past, that practically meant you had to find someone running a data center for you. And data center operations, if you buy all those servers, are incredibly important and are incredibly expensive and important at the same time. One of the most important enabling technology software-wise in the past years has been the advent of the so-called cloud computing. Who is using some form of cloud service? Okay, so it's almost all of you. And that's interesting because 2-3 years ago, I was traveling Germany and had to give a presentation explaining what a cloud service is. So within just 3 years, it became kind of a commodity. Entrepreneurs and startups start out by building solutions on a service that essentially giving you a data center on demand, on a pay-per-use basis. And all the infrastructure you need actually already there, pre-packaged, use ready. And making that available to someone building a solution so you can use it right from the start is one of the key differentiators, because somehow you have to handle these amazing data streams that we see around the globe. Also, technologies like the smart driving car don't work on their own regard. They are basically powered by an incredible, powerful set of processing technologies about data that you kind of have to learn from, that make you more aware of your surroundings. And all these kind of services, you have to consume them, you have to use them, or you have to adapt them to your needs. And making that versatile and accessible to the ideas that are not yet fleshed out is one of the key factors here. So Google, as a platform provider, tries to be as flexible as possible to be able to adapt to your needs. So you have a full set of APIs and functionalities that you can use to build your solution on top of that. And that's an interesting one. VR. VR is actually already here. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this device. It's called Cardboard. It was the flashy cool thing in last year's I.O. The I.O. is Google's top tech conference happening once a year in San Francisco. And this is essentially an open source piece of hardware. It's a literally made of cardboard piece of technology that costs you in production about $3 and gives you, together with your smartphone, a full-scale virtual reality glass set, which lets you consume virtual reality-ready content, which lets you build services and games on top of it, which is a showcase for things that you do in other areas, and which makes it accessible to everyone. Google built that we call that 20% project, so you might have heard of that. At Google, we have that culture of being interested in fields outside our expertise, and we support that by allowing everyone in the company to spend 20% of their time doing projects that are dear to their heart, or something they want to learn, or something interesting on the side. This had been a 20% project of two Googlers who actually were passionate about making virtual reality available to everyone. And they open sourced the kit. Everyone can build virtual reality glasses through that specification. And there is a number of interesting sensors in there. There is a magnetosensor, there is an NFC sensor in there, and together with your phone, it's becoming actually a piece of hardware that would have cost you almost a 5-digit figure 5 years ago. So available for you with your $100 smartphone, or even a $50 smartphone and a piece of cardboard. That's the type of commodity we're talking about. Technology becomes an enabler that's available to everyone at a very low price point, and we expect from it to work seamlessly and power the things that we have in mind. And that's essentially what we're talking about if you ever fired up any smartphone app that does substantial things with the internet, or if you run your email through Gmail, or if you fire up a search. Google is running data center operations around the globe, is the private company with the most company-owned high bandwidth transcontinental connections. So we kind of make you all these services available if you have a solution that needs basically that storage, that processing power, that machine learning involved in that. As mentioned, there is no one size fits all. So I kind of moved away from the idea to make you a full technology pitch, because I don't know if I would have given this is the technology you have to look into talk to Airbnb when they started, or to Meerkat, or to Docker, those three talks would have looked vastly different. They are doing massively different things, these three services. Still, they all sit on global data center operation. They all sit on top of the cloud. All three of them use the Google Android platform. All three of them use services, not only Google, services that are available on global scale. So these three startups are kind of demonstrating that we have no such thing than a recipe. I was asked that earlier today. Earlier today I was asked, do you give us a recipe for success for startups, or do you have something at Google? And we would love to. I work with probably close to 1,000 startups every year. Personally, I meet a few hundreds of them, and I have mentoring sessions with them. We discuss technology options, and the recipe, haven't seen it yet. Sorry for that. That's why entrepreneurs are successful if they have the grit to actually see it through and move fast enough. But that's also kind of like part of the game. So the most respected and successful and well-liked entrepreneurs, most of them, they fail like 3 times, and the 4th one is actually making it. So embracing that kind of culture is important. If I give you a recipe, these are the 5 things you gotta do, then probably I'm setting you up for failure. It's always kind of tailor-made. But the things that you have in common are shared among all startups, luckily. So I don't have a recipe, but I have a few things everyone needs. So most startups start out small, and the first thing they actually need is an office and a Wi-Fi connection and some place to meet others that are on the same journey. Find experts, technical support, knowledge, know-how. Knowledge and know-how sometimes are not the same thing. So meeting someone who was walking in your shoes in the past and knows how to deal with certain pitfalls and how to deal with certain things that come your way is as essential as having the tech expert in the team. And startups are powerful today because the global connection we see in the social web, in cloud, in all the things that you use day in, day out, enable you to make these teams, these powerful connections very, very fast. And Google Entrepreneur programs are actually designed to expose you to these resources. Of course, for you, that's pure money. Being able to meet the right people that can you get in touch with an angel investor who is just passionate about your subject area, that's pure money, of course. But also meeting the people that have the solution for your tech problem, or that can you get in touch with someone who actually knows how to drive your product to product market fit, or that give good advice in terms of when to launch something, that's worth money as well and can be the silver line between success and failure very easily. So what we did was then starting with a physical requirement, having a need for infrastructure, having a requirement for coffee and Wi-Fi. We created partnerships and created physical locations. So there's something called Google Campus. You find Google Campus in every city that comes to your mind when you hear the word startup. So when you hear the word startup, you think of the Silicon Valley probably. You probably think of Tel Aviv, you think of London, you think of Berlin, you think of Madrid, you think of all these cities, and Google Campus is in all of them. What is Google Campus? It's essentially something like a Google-sponsored office where not only Googlers hang out, but startups are free to roam. There's usually a good cafeteria, there's a good Wi-Fi connection, and there are events, networking events with the local community to enable connections between everyone. These places turned out to be like breeding grounds for the most powerful startup and entrepreneurial ideas we've seen in the past. Check it out. There, I give you the link to it. If you live in near one of those cities, it's probably worth showing up there. And the programs ran at those offices or those Google Campus buildings are things like regular networking events, like pitch parties, like boot camps. My team is running a boot camp week called Launchpad Week, where we partner selected startups with about 40 high-class mentors to work on their solutions. These things are typically run at Google Campus sites. And, or things like Campus for Moms, which helps entrepreneurial moms to get the time and have the opportunity to run a business or bootstrap a business, even though they don't have the same amount of time at their hand as someone from us might have. This connection sharing goes, well, some way in those infrastructure projects, but it goes actually beyond that. So we have a virtual part of that picture as well. We open up our startup programs essentially to everyone who wants to kick off some idea, who wants to do something with technology. And the services we give people that sign up and tell us about their startup is we help them finding mentors that have experiences to share. We do office hours, so you can meet industry leaders in video conferences. We invite you to events, for instance, at Google Campus, or in some event that's coming close to you. So we make you aware of opportunities to meet each other. I find it incredible. Sometimes people starting with a business actually have a challenge to meet the larger ecosystem. But usually in every city you have a vibrant ecosystem that's helping you connecting the dots. You have universities helping you with entrepreneurial knowledge. You have people who help you find financial support and all these things. And we make the connections on the local level, but with the global in mind. If Google knows how to do something, we know how to scale things on a global level, help you reach a global audience, help you run a global operation, and these are the things that we bring through the programs to you. So it is making those connections, meeting people, whether it's the tech expert, whether it's the finance expert, whether it's someone helping you building a business plan or finding a market, but it's also the pure knowledge transfer that we're looking into. Some of the things we learn by running our own operations are things that are priceless. If we keep it to ourselves, that would be like a crime on the global entrepreneurial community. So we are constantly building content, targeting startups and entrepreneurs, technical content, business-related content, information on how you actually use all the available systems to the best of your advantage, and partner it with enabling goods. Like for instance, if you set your mind on building something on top of a cloud infrastructure, that cloud infrastructure usually has a free layer, but at some point, if you become successful in your tests, it actually costs money. So what we do is we take away that toll from you by giving you vouchers for running your solution in the cloud, essentially for a while for free. Testing it out. If it's not running, fine. If it's running and scales up, you actually fine-tuned it without having to pay for it the right way. Same is true for certain baseline user testing, baseline market analysis. All these kind of things are built into that. We have a product called Firebase you might have heard about that helps you making real-time connections between mobile users and mobile systems. And this Firebase technology is also available through those programs for free to entrepreneurs. So if you sign up for that, you get essentially the content that we give you to explain how to build those systems, and you get the systems in your hand to run them on your operation. Of course, many of the technologies Google is giving out are actually costing money in the second you run a global operation. It's not like you're paying from the start. Usually they are paid on a by-use basis. So that's the beauty of the cloud, right? The more you actually consume, the more you're going to pay up to the level that you define, and taking away that requirement until you're actually large enough in operation, so this becomes a easy to handle tool, is one of the things that you find in those programs. So where to go? There's something to be said about large corporations. Even though we are the world's largest startup, or want to frame us that way, we are also a 50,000 people startup. That means in a 50,000 people startup where everyone wants to work with startups, you have multiple starting points how to connect. And there are two starting points that you should keep in mind and use as a resource. We have a department at Google that's called Google for Entrepreneurs. This is the entity running those startup places I was talking about. And Google for Entrepreneurs has a set of services available for you. Making connections with entrepreneurs in your region, running events, all these kind of things. And that's the left-hand side, the right-hand side, sorry, that's Google for Entrepreneurs. If you follow that link, what you find is the nearest campus environment close to you, the events that are running close to you, all these things. Then we have the entity at Google that I'm working in, developer relations, and we are loving tech. So when you're after tech information, or you want to meet experts, or you want to meet other tech startups, or you want to be part of one of those projects where we get you in touch with those startups and work in those boot camps week with you, then the other link is for you. Both make a neat resource package where you get all the things that I mentioned, like free access to certain services and functionalities, like the free content that I was talking about. All these programs are actually together built there to make a global operation available to you. And of course, if you feel there's something missing, or if you have a specific question, hey, ping me. I'm answering my pings quite regularly. The top one is Google+. Google Plus is almost close to email for me. I'm also on Twitter. I have a web page. You can reach me any modern way of communication, really. Reach out. I help making the connection. I'm happy to route. I'm happy to point you to the resource you need. And I'm going to hang out here today a few hours, and I will be here back next week. So if you're based here, or if you walk in and out, grab me, ask me directly, and I'm happy to connect the dots for you. And with that, I like to open up the floor if there are any questions right now. I was promised that someone brings the tough question with him.